Like TK Ninja has found a key. And actually, oh, I'm seeing here, Hookshot was actually sent on on the right side here to TK Ninja. So he has the Hookshot. That's very useful. Pegasus Boots and Ocarina are also sent. Wow, this is there's a lot they're getting very early on. This may be a very quick seed. Yeah, it's looking like TK Ninja's decision to head up worked out for him. Honestly, I am not terribly familiar with the Final Fantasy side of things, so I don't know if that choice may have made a difference there. But so far, they have got a clear advantage in items on Link's Awakening side, and it looks like in Final Fantasy as well. At least Odron has a shard 2 now, whereas Wildam has none. Although I will say the client on the left side here with the omelets, it doesn't seem active. I'm wondering if they may be having some technical issues actually. And I'm curious to see if something might be going on there. Oh, it looks like they found their progressive bracelet. That's going to be handy. You need one of those to get through much of the area. Basically the entire... Oh, that was a canoe. Very helpful as well. But anyhow, as I was saying, the power bracelet basically gives the Link's Awakening people access to largely the entire east side of the island. There's a few places you can get without it, and not relevant to this, as they're not playing with entrance randomizer. Occasionally you can get outside of the west side of the island entrance rando, but it's not terribly common. As I said earlier, you're having to go back to the original house, talk to that ghost. They will refill your consumable resources, something that's very helpful for a randomizer, especially when you end up with very early on a case of that primary weapon. I actually had a seed that I was practicing with not too long ago where bombs were all I had for quite a while. It made for a difficult run. Nightmare Key for Total Rock. Nightmare Keys are not terribly helpful in this context in terms of an indicator. In round 1, we were playing to so many instruments. In this one, we are simply trying to get seashells. So that's what your important factor here. And so far, there's only been one seashell collected at all, and that's by TK Ninja. But in general, you want as many checks as you can get, whereas in the previous round, those Nightmare Keys were a good indicator because we needed to finish at least 6 dungeons. Oh, and he got the nag message. Bad luck there, but it's not the biggest influence. We have Hookshot Cave. He found his first seashell. So that's good there. They're largely caught up at the point. They've basically took divergent routes, and now it seems like they're starting to reconverge slightly. They're pretty much on the same page. Let's see. TK Ninja has a shield, so that's basically the only real difference in terms of abilities for Link's Awakening. Technically, like I said, he does have the key and the Nightmare Key for Total Rock, but those are also going to be very hard to get to this early on without potentially the use of some glitches, but even then, it's not really worth it. You can see on the Final Fantasy side, both teams now have their ship and their canoe. There is no floater in this round. That is the thing that they've removed in round 2. We're still 2 shards for Odron and none for Wildam so far. So, found a map. These are basically junk in Link's Awakening for anybody that's playing at this level. So that's just, it's an empty check essentially. Let's found some gold. TK Ninja found some gold on his side. We do not see what was collected on BB's side. We got a seashell from someone, so that makes them, I put that from 2, I believe. And we see TK Ninja over here doing a little exchange rate, buying an item for some gold. He found the opal helm for Odoron in his shop and did not decide to purchase or steal that. We see Bibi on the left-hand side. He's trying to get across the hole with some pause buffering. Relatively simple trick, but it's something that not everybody is aware of. And we see the TK Ninjas over here in the trendy game. Looks like he's collecting magic powder. They have not been sent any magic powder yet, so that's going to be useful. That's going to get him into a few places. And then he's going back and get that check as well. That magic powder. Oh, the ballad. That not useful in this context, because simply having 20 seashells will open the egg without the ocarina, without the ballad of the windfish. However, it does open an additional check. So it's basically a check to get another check. You get Ninja over there smashing his head against the wall while he waits for the trendy shop to dispense. And it looks like TK Ninja is going to go do a little fishing. You know, everybody needs a break every now and then. Relax, have a little fun. But really, there are one here. And we've lost the feed. And we're back. Let's see what do we have here. So BB just ran and did a owl check. The owls in Link's Awakening DX have hints built into the game. And in this context, they are somewhat helpful and sometimes they're not. And you never know what you're going to get. And sometimes it's not going to be pretty. And sometimes you get things as silly as, you can find sand in the desert. So it's hit or miss on whether you want to do those. They do take time to read, and the text scrolling in this game is not incredibly fast, but you do what you have to. And it's a gamble you can take. I have had helpful ones show up on occasion. We got the Mad Bear by TK Ninja. Let's see what he gets. And he got a key in the Tail Cave. You technically only need one key with glitches to finish Tail Cave, but again, we're looking for most checks. Let's see. He found a seashell. That puts them at 2 as well. I think that puts them, tied them up. And Bibi is in the Color Dungeon. It's a dungeon that has only a handful of checks and is not entirely required in the original game. It is a completely optional dungeon that was added with the DX remake, the color version. And it's a thing that's hit or miss in terms... Oh, excuse me. I just see TK Ninja received a boomerang. That is a god tier weapon in Link's Awakening. It is one of the 3 items, 2 simple items that can be used to defeat the final boss, and it is a one-hit kill on that final boss. So we will probably see that when the time comes. It does look like, in terms of Link's Awakening specifically, TK Ninja does have the lead. He has a few more items because he went and picked up that magic powder. He's also got the boomerang now, as well as multiple nightmare keys. And we see Bibi. He is going to the trendy shop. Will we see him pick up the magic? It looks like he already has. Excuse me. So we are currently at 3 shards on Odoron's side to Wildham's 0. Or I believe that's a 0. Could be an 8. Font's a little fuzzy for me. We also have 3 shells for TK Ninja and 2 for Bibi. So we're really not that far apart, it looks really bad on the wild ham side, but it's also hard to tell if they've picked up shards versus the seashells, which are pretty obvious because we have the text dialogue that pops up. And we're having, it appears, some issues with the AP console to actually read out to be sure what they're getting on that end. We see TK Ninjas now in the color dungeon, and Bibi is going to fish. So here they are. They're swapping back and forth again. As you can see, they're hitting the same places, just in different times. It's worked out so far in this case that it's mostly been a trade back and forth. We haven't seen anything so far that just really puts one team at an advantage over the other for a long term. It's been very much a back and forth, which is what I would expect with as close as the race was last night, that they would stay close together like this. I'm curious as to why he's going in here and buying these bombs. I would assume you could go to the Ghost and get those refilled. But again, I'm relatively new to the scene, so maybe there's a factor here that I am not familiar with. And we just see that he stole some gold. He's going to get killed here as retribution. Will be permanently called Thief from this point forward in the game. Not that you see the dialogue with his name all that frequently anyhow. And he's going to steal this item without even checking to see what it is. And if you've already stole, you might as well steal that regardless of what it is, because it's really not going to hurt you in the long run. I try and avoid it the first go around because you do tend to get a lot of money. We just see him clip in without the power bracelet to open that up. But as I was saying, you know, I don't tend to steal the first item because there's plenty of money in this game, and usually, unless it's a very critical item, you can stand to wait and purchase the first one, steal the second one. That's generally what I do, unless I suspect that down the road you're going to need to buy things from the store, such as arrows and bombs. We now see Bibi has just started working in the Dream Shrine. He's almost finished. Nothing of consequence was actually there. We say TK Ninja. He's trying to do this skip because part of the rules of this run is that we're not allowed to hint for the feather because, frankly, the feather is very broken. The only other item in this game that is anywhere close to as broken as the feather is the bombs, but there are 3 different bombs, so you're probably going to find them relatively easily. Anyhow, they actually started with them in this round, or you can hint for them, and it may not actually be helpful. You don't know that you can get there with 3 different ones. There's always the potential that your bomb is actually in the last place you could ever check. So we see that TK Ninja is conversing with Marin, going to get the song, quote unquote, which is actually another check. We see Bibi over here is heading to what we call the Boots and Bombs cave for fairly obvious reasons, as you'll see here. Again, triggering those crystals. Those crystals are very particular with their nag messages, as we call them in the scene. And those are on because they can be used for glitches in this case. AP, if you want to play this on your own, you have the option to turn those off completely. And when I'm playing in an asynchronous, I generally play asynchronous of these. I do turn that off because I don't need them. But for if you want to get interested in Archipelago, that's what I mean when I say AP, that is an option that you can turn those things off. And there's a lot of very neat things that you can do with Archipelago beyond just these 2 games. We can play several different games. It started with the Links to the Past. It also has Super Metroid. It has Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, Mario 64, a bevy of different games that you can play. And you can swap items between them, and it's loads of fun to do. And you don't have to play at the same time as they're doing now. Like I said, much of what I do is play it over the course of days, weeks, months. We see they're both headed over to the east side of the island. They have not spent much time over here. There's not a whole lot you can do over here without the flippers. You can get to a few places, but you want the flippers to open up Martha's Bay and several of the other places that you can get to over here. It does appear that Bibi has found his sword, so that's going to be good for them, because the sword is required. There are many offensive weapons in this game, and many of them are actually more useful than the sword, at least the level 1 sword. And Bibi just now received his boomerang as well, so they're on equal footing in that regard as well. Going to have a very quick final boss fight when we get to that point. So they're going to do what few checks they can here around Martha's Bay. I imagine once they've checked everything on the left side of the bay, they're going to go over to the east side where Animal Village is and check out a few things there. They should have everything they need to get every check in the desert, and they should be able to get most of them in Animal Village at this point. There's a few trade quest things that you can't do there, but those are things that they're going to crop up as they do, and there's not much you can do about it other than just simply wait and hope. So Bibi was trying to get into this bush. Yeah, they can just simply hook shot across, and that is, admittedly, that's something I've done many a times myself. It's the original route is to go through with a Pegasus boots, but I often forget that there's other options like using the hook shot to get across. And here we see they are basically neck and neck. We get a hint, 200 rupees in a bomb cave, but they are right together. They have the same items. This is like very close race. I am curious to see where this goes. We are very early in, so things could still make a wild shift. Most of these races have run hour 20 to 2 hours, depends on what you seed. I've seen quite a few seeds in this tournament so far that have been what we would call trash fires. There've been items that were completely out of the way. There's been a lot of extra dungeon dipping that we've had to do. You see TK Ninja, he just one-shot this boss before it even spawned in because its hitbox is actually there in that lower left corner, and you can hit it before it even spawns in. Oh, and TK Ninja has found his Rock's feather. This right here is what breaks this game open, especially in dungeons. It's useful in the overworld as well, large part of that being that when you jump, you move faster when you jump diagonally. It's just the way the game is programmed, that's how things happen to be. But also things like water, grass, those make you move faster. And he had just picked up his second. It's not terribly useful in general, but it does open one check in Mabe Village where you can now push the rooster statue, and it also opens up Dungeon 6 Face Shrine. At this point, they still can't access that because they do need some means to get there. The simple method is the flippers. I am sure that advanced players can get there with the rooster or some other sort of Jesus jump, that sort of thing. So we'll see if anybody can do that here. I don't suspect so, because it's not exactly a short dungeon. It doesn't have a whole lot of checks for what's there either. It has quite a few, especially compared to a lot of the smaller dungeons early on, but it is not terribly worth it, in my opinion, to go in there in most cases. Checked for the hint. Again, it's just a compass, not terribly useful. Bibi is now going down. They're going to get their power bracelet here in just a moment. It looks like TK Ninja still does not have his sword, which is going to make... It's going to make the bombs... Or not the bombs, excuse me. The feather slightly less useful. He can technically do what's called super jumps. That's what ultimately breaks the feather so much in this game. And he can still technically do that, but it is going to be slightly more difficult, which probably not a problem. But more importantly, it's a consumable at that point, because the only item he has right now that it will work with is the bow, which means he has to have arrows to be able to use it. It looks like Bibi is checking the books in the library for hints. He's found the ocarina already, so that's a useless hint. Got 100 rupees. As I said, the hint system in this is very hit or miss. You know, you will oftentimes not get a hint at all, or you will get some snarky business about, oh, hey, let's find a witch at the witch's hut, or the mermaid is in Martha's Bay. Things that are not terribly helpful in basically any context because they're fairly obvious. All right, we see, oh, Bibi does the spin attack from the side to cut those or break those crystals without having to go across. It's slightly faster if you can do it without falling in. I have not gotten good enough at that to where I do that consistently. He's finally hitting up the Mad Batter. I believe this is the same Mad Batter that TK Ninja hit earlier. Speaking of TK Ninja, he is going into the ancient ruins and he's going to take out these Armos to get one check here. And then there's the large Armos that he will take on as a sort of mini boss once he gets to the end of here. It's a very minor boss. And despite being something that takes place between 5 and 6 dungeon in terms of the normal playthrough, it's not that difficult. By this point, you've usually got plenty of things that'll help. You've got the bow, which is sort of implied to be the intended way to defeat it, but you can also use a sword. In his case, he doesn't have a sword, so he's going to have to use the arrows in this case. We see Bibi on our left. He is now taking on the Moblins, trying to go and what would be save Bow Wow. Bow Wow is in the game still, and he is inevitably either locked in a chest or randomly dropped from the ceiling if he's placed where a key would normally be. And in the Archipelago implementation, he shows up only when you're in the swamp, which helps with various things like frame rates, and I'm assuming at some point probably helps with a glitch here or there because Link's Awakening DX is a terribly broken game. It's a broken game, but I love it. So we've got TK Ninjas digging up poor dog's doghouse, like, leave the poor thing alone. And Bibi is dipping back into Bottle Grotto. They came in here earlier and simply got that first chest, but now they have magic powder, so they can get a little deeper. They've only got one key, which means technically they cannot get to the end, but they can actually access most checks with the items that they currently have. The main thing that you need is the feather to get over some holes. They just found another secret seashell, which I believe may tie them up at this point. There may still be one behind. And we have another key that he's found. PK Ninja just left the graveyard. It looks like they may be heading to Bottle Grotto as well. We'll see. Yes, they are going around to get that check, the chest in the swamp, before they head in, which is what I would do, because I would very much forget that it's out there if I don't. Just clipping past that big flower, that's a major factor in this game, is clipping. It's very easy to clip just 1, 2, or 3 pixels into a block. And we haven't necessarily seen that yet, but that is a big factor into the super jump and that glitch and how you can just break these games incredibly. Looks like Bibi is setting up for a super jump. We will see if they pull that off or if they decide to go somewhere else. Nope, they did not, which is smart. They do have checks here. But if you're trying to beeline for that boss in this stage, say we were in the first round and you were trying to get to the boss to clear it, because that was your goal versus seashells in this case, you could super jump over those pots and into that staircase. And that would allow you to go a little faster versus going through all these, flipping the switches back and forth and all that. They have one more check that they can access without a key. And unless they picked one up in this dungeon that I may have missed, they do not have that key. We just confirmed. This is the puzzle that many kids probably got stuck. Oh, that was the magic rod. That is good for them. Magic rod allows them to use fire without having to have magic powder, so they can light torches just like they could to get in here. That's going to be very helpful. It's also a very strong weapon. Most of the mini bosses only takes about 1-2 hits to kill them with that. So that's very helpful. TK Ninja also going through Bottle Grotto, same route, not far behind. But like I say, they're on slightly different paths. You can see TK Ninja has some bananas where Bibi does not. Bibi has a sword where TK does not. So It's these small decisions that are going to make difference over the course of things, but it is still a very tight race here. Looks like Wildham has potentially his rod. That's going to be useful to finish this. Let's see where Bibi is going to head after finishing up. Let's see, with the items that they have, I'm not certain what keys they have at this point. Potentially in this direction, you've got the key cavern. If they have that key, it looks like they just now got a hibiscus, so that's a check they can do in the animal village. Direction looks like they're either going for Richard Skip. Yep, it's Richard Skip. That's what they're going to try and do. So they do have the shovel now, which makes the Richard Skip more useful. Technically, you can do this just to get to the chest underneath Richard, and I will admit, been known to do that in the past because I needed something that was there more than I needed whatever was buried there. But as you can see, they jump and do a screen transition over that pit, and they do that via pause buffering. And what they'll do here is dig up this item, which is a seashell. That's useful for them. I think that ties them up again. They are very tight when it comes to the seashell count. And what they'll now do, they actually died. I wonder if they did that on purpose. We'll see if they go back and try and do the Richard's Cave chest, or if they just skip that altogether, whether or not that was on purpose. Now we see here that TK Ninja did a slightly different thing. He opened a different key door to get a check that was in there. He also just received the stick, which is a trade item in this game, which is basically a trade-off, one item for another. It looks like TK Ninja had more keys, so he made more checks, but ooh, it looks like they will not get their magic rod now because they cannot get that far. I do not believe. Or was the magic rod... Yeah, the magic rod was in the puzzle room. So no, they will be able to reach that. They did have significantly more keys. They will basically be able to full clear this, short of the final dungeon, or the final boss, which would require that they have the Nightmare Key, which they do not have. So we see Bibi has went into the key cavern, used the clip to get into this from the wrong direction. It's minor time save depending on which way you're coming from, or major time save depending on which way you're coming from. If you've got bombs and you've been able to blow up that large rock to the north, makes it a very quick route. If not, you're going to have to go around anyhow, so it doesn't save you a large chunk of time in that context. See, this is an action that TK Ninja cannot currently take yet, though, because they do not have the slime key, but they have the stick, and they will now be helping Taran here. I always get confused. He looks like Mario, but his name is Taran. So, helping him with the stick, let him get stung, go home, sleep it off, whatever. We have Bibi just did a super jump to get to that chest without having to have the switch. And they will take the Forzol chest here and found the flippers. That is very useful. That will give them access to basically the rest of Martha's Bay. That includes Catfish's Maw. Several super jumps here to get to places without switches. Places that, quite frankly, I wasn't aware of, and I'm going to have to implement that in my own races at this point. It looks like TK Ninja is attempting to do a Jesus jump over to the island. He's going to pause buffer and try and get the one frame where he could jump off the water, and he's going to do this again to try and transition to the next screen, at which point he will have to jump once again to get to the island with the bush on it. And can they pull it off? Yep, yeah, they did it. Let's see if it pays off for them. What is in here? That's a very useful item. That held us up in one of my previous races for a bit because of that. So that's good. But Bibi has the flippers, so they will most likely pick that up on the way out of this dungeon anyhow. So taking the time to do that did not actually benefit them in the long run and may cost them time because it takes so long to execute and then execute once again to get back out of that scenario. We will see Bibi pick up a piece of power, and they're going to attempt to clip, and they pulled it off. They clipped into this section where you need one key, and you can do this to get this chest. Technically, you would have to beat the Dodongo creatures. They're not technically Dodongos. They're like snails of some sort. But you would have to defeat them to get to that next room. But as you just saw, you can do a super jump and spin off and clip into that second area and skip a necessary key. Normally it takes 4 keys to get to the nightmare, but you can do that skip, and it can do it in only 2 technically if you can also clip the block. But if you can't clip the block, then you can do it in just 3. And so they have a house for the Final Fantasy player on their side. And that would be pretty much all of Key Cavern, I believe, at this point. They should not have many left other than perhaps some of the corner rooms. And this is a problem with Key Cavern in terms of key logic. In the second floor, when they go down this stairwell here, you see there's 4 rooms, all with keys. And there's a lot of keys here, and you don't know what you're going to get. So it's kind of you got to pull what you think you're going to get. And they skip grabbing the necklace. So the necklace is a trade item, which you can then trade for one of your own items. I believe it's the logic that we're running on this. And so it's a check for a check, and I'm curious as to why they skipped it, and it's going to be bad if they come back and that's not actually a requirement. Oh, they did go back, and they picked it up, and they went home now. We see TK Ninja, he's accessed Key Cavern. He'll follow the same route Bibi did. We see Bibi now finally coming back to Mabe Village and opening this, because they now have the Song of Soul, which means they can play the ocarina and ostensibly resurrect this rooster, which is not a rooster in randomizer. It's going to be some item we will detect here in a moment. The rooster is in the randomizer. We do have that setting enabled. Nobody has received it yet. They've got a simple key as a small key to Key Cavern. So maybe they go back and check that one last room that they had. Or if they have the nightmare key, potentially they go and by the boss. It's 2 checks. It's not a significant thing if you've got other places that you can go that have more checks rather than double dipping into the same dungeon. But again, all this comes down to choices. One choice or another can really make the difference on whether or not you win or you lose. So now that they've got the flippers, I imagine they're going to head to Catfish's Maw, because it does not require very many keys. Technically, with some proper jumps, you can make that dungeon in only a single key and a nightmare key. You can completely clear that dungeon, assuming you have the hook shot, which they do. And they should be able to collect most, if not all, the checks in Catfish's Maw relatively easy. Oh, an accidental conversation with the NPC. She's going to trade in for the broom. Oh, no, they do not have the broom. Or they've already traded in. Maybe that's what they did. Trading in the hibiscus to the goat, who pretends to be Princess Peach in her letter to Mr. Right. Catfishing poor Mr. Right for all these years. They are very close in their seashell counts. We've got 10 on Bibi and 11 on TK Ninja. We have in the Final Fantasy, we're at 12 shards, and I believe that is a 10 on Odron. We're going to bomb trigger for the fishing hook. Attempt to. Did not seem to work. There we go. See what he gets from the fisherman. That was just bizarre looking. Got the wizard rod for the Final Fantasy for Wildem. And at this point, I suspect they may go talk to the mermaid first, or they may go into Catfish's Maw. We shall see. It is definitely Maw once they started headed downward. But then they decided they were going to go see the mermaid. They probably forgot they had the necklace. You probably would see me do something similar and make just a erratic change in direction because I'm like, oh, hey, wait a second. I have something else I can do quickly before we head in to do this, and I will likely forget where I'm at. See, I have to dive down here and go under. This is slow, and there is no real way to speed it up. A lot of times you will see players jump. I frankly don't know if that makes any difference. I've not studied it enough to know, but at the very least it makes us feel better, and you do ascend very quickly once you get to the end. Did not time that quite right. If you pause when you're coming into a dungeon like that, if you do it at the right time, you will skip the dialogue. You can skip a lot of dialogue with properly timed pauses in this game. I'm not very good at any of them except for the entrance to the dungeon. That's the one I can do reliably. You'll see them a lot of times. I'll also do the save and quit to skip dialogue for when they open a chest. I'm not sure exactly what the time saving is on that, to be honest. I think if you've got a short dialogue box, it's basically even, but some of these items do give a very long dialogue box, especially if you get things like the Stalfos message, which you would normally get in here when you open a chest. You just saw Bibi over here. They were using bomb arrows to kill, quote unquote, the Stalfos there rather than hit him 2-3 times as required, because it instantly ends the fight and you get a key for it. So that's another thing about this. Once you can get to the Stalfos, if you have bomb arrows, i.e. if you have bombs and arrows, then you can actually kill them and get several keys. There's only supposed to be 3 keys in Catfish's Maw, but if you kill them, you can get more than is even possible. And it looks like in this case he just let them die the normal way, because technically it's only 2 hits to kill them in the second and third fights. It is 3 in the first fight and 4 in the final fight. I did not see them attempt to do the I forget what the name of the technique is, but in this stage you can actually collect an item from the room adjacent to the 4th Stalfos fight to collect that item without actually collecting the item. I personally have not been successful in that. It's a very tight timing, and it's one of those things I've been practicing, but it's so tight that it's probably not worth it in most cases unless you are very excellent and can execute it every single time, because it takes quite a bit of time to reset that room once again. They are now in the 3 Stalfos room. They collected gold for the Final Fantasy player, it would appear. We have TK Ninja. He's outside of Canalet Castle. He did the long jump into the what normally would be a seashell location. Having a little trouble with that jump, which I know the feeling. I've had quite a few times where he got just stuck and frustrated. It happens to everybody. He's talking to Kiki, getting them to build the bridge. So he is going to enter Canalet Castle. This is a thing which I'm fairly certain Bibi did not do. They did it very quickly, and I managed to miss the entire thing. Bibi did just pick up the key, Nightmare Cavern, or excuse me, the Nightmare Key for the Key Cavern. Too many keys in that phrase. Let's see. On TK Ninja's side, he just got... Well, that was for a moment, it was a shovel, but turned into a Catfish's Maw stone beak. So he's now going into Canalet Castle. There are 5 checks, I believe, in here. What would normally be the 5 golden feathers, or not feathers, excuse me, the golden leaves. They would normally be in there. Bibi just gets the blue tunic, which that doubles your defense. And that is the room I was speaking of. If you have the boomerang and you collect that item as you make the screen transition, and it is very specific timing, you will collect In the adjacent room, once you transition, you will collect the item that this Master Stalfos would drop. In this case, it would be a stone beak. And so instead of getting the blue tunic, you would get the beak, and then I believe you go back to the other room and you recollect that item as if nothing had happened. We see TK Ninja. He is trying to take down this whack-a-mole knight in these holes. I believe the name for that location is Bomberman meets Whack-a-Mole or something to that effect. He received a katana for his Final Fantasy player, Odron. Bibi is going through the west wing of Catfish's Mall, just picked up another seashell. They're starting to fall behind a bit compared to TK Ninja, who is now only 4 away from goal. And if I am reading this correctly, that sword is actually, the fact that he does not have the sword where Bibi does is actually hurting him at this point, because if he gets those 4 seashells, he still does not have a sword. And unless there is a glitch that I am not aware of, you cannot beat the final boss without a sword of some sort. Oh, he tried to blow it up from behind and it did not work. That's always disheartening when you see that, because the bomb fuses in this game are quite long and do not allow you to place more than one bomb at a time. Limitations of the Game Boy, what are you going to do? We see Bibi is now headed to Face Shrine. Did not see where they picked that key up, but they do have it, so they can get in here. They have the second power bracelet, they have feather, they have sword. If they've got the nightmare key, I think they can full clear this one with what they have and without very many keys. One well-placed bomb to take out all the Wizrobes. That was 20 rupees. Or no, excuse me. That was actually gold that they sent to the Final Fantasy player. Bibi did. TK Ninja, he's heading up to the Martha's Bay dig spot. He'll be digging up this and probably checking the hint statue while he's there. It's not out of the way, so it's a good one to check. Hopefully it will be helpful for him. You've got Bibi going down to get what would be the second power bracelet in a vanilla run. He got the Sun Sword for his Final Fantasy player. Did not check the hint. And I don't blame him either. Like I said, the hints are not terribly great in this many of the times. That was more gold found for the Final Fantasy player by Bibi. And it looks like TK Ninja is going to head into Catfish's Maw now. But first, just like with Bibi, going to head over to the mermaid to trade in that necklace. At this point, I do not know if he has the hook, so he may not even bother with the fisherman at this point. He's got the 3 Wizrobe and a switch room. The names on these things are absolutely bizarre, and half the time I can't remember what they are. But that did send a key to the Final Fantasy player, which I believe, if they do not have a thief, is a requirement. May not be a hard requirement. It may simply be a requirement for many checks. Looks like TK Ninja did have a fisher's hook and did do the bomb trigger on that as well. The tail key was found by Bibi in the Face Shrine. That is a place with a decent amount of checks, but more importantly, it's very small, very fast. It's something you can do. There is a super jump in there that allows you to get to a chest and a check without a key. That's helpful. Not a bad place to go if they're going to have to return home anyhow. So we'll see where that goes. They got the scale. They may head back down to Martha's Bay when they're finished in here to go turn that in, or they may not. It is a long way, and it's a relatively slow check for one item. It's one of those things, do you gamble and not do it, or do you waste your time potentially getting nothing out of it? It's one of those things that you're going to kick yourself if an important item was there, though. Lots of maps. Bibi is turning into a cartographer here. Now they're going to head to the east side of the Face Shrine. This is where the boss will be, the mini boss. We may not even see the mini boss. If they do super jumps, they may skip that entirely. We have the floating tile room. It's been a staple since A Link to the Past. It's also in this game. I believe it's in Link Between Worlds. I want to say it was even in one of the 3D games, perhaps Twilight Princess. It's been a long time since I played through that game. We're going to do bombs. I'm going to try and get this well placed and probably bump a Wizrobe into it. Yes, excellent placement. Can't get through here vanilla, but you can super jump here, which is, again, still learning this. It's a super jump I forget you can do. The whole east side of Face Shrine is fairly broken with the super jumps, though, because you'll see here, I'm certain they will perform at least one super jump, perhaps two, to get the checks in here. And you can essentially run much of this part of the game backwards. They got a nightmare key for Bottle Grotto. They hinted for seashells because they are getting to the point where that's all they need, but there's a lot of hints to perform. I did not catch where the ones that they had not found were. It scrolled and popped around really quickly. We see that TK Ninja is over in Catfish's Maw. Looks to be doing things largely the same as Bibi did when they were in it. And they clipped, got the nag message out of it. And we saw Bibi does the super jump up to the upper area. This would normally be where the nightmare key is. We will see them go down. They will likely super jump away, or they might clip. It looks like they're going to attempt to do the clip. Oh no, it was a different form of super jump. And this is a very difficult super jump. I have pulled it off on occasion, but it is very small window to get up there to where you can actually get onto the ledge and don't end up stuck in the wall and have to jump back down. That was a very quick execution. We'll see them up here to get one more check with the horse heads, the chess pieces, the knights, as it were. Okay, for a second there, I was not sure what had happened to the enemies in that room. I did not realize he had his boomerang equipped, which that is one of the only things that will kill those enemies, which their name is escaping me at the moment. And so, again, like I said, boomerang is a god tier weapon in Link's Awakening. It will one-shot many things. It's got very good range of attack. You can aim it very well instead of it being a straight line like most other attacks, or short range like the sword is. As you can see, Bibi is going through Face Shrine essentially backwards and has collected quite a few more seashells. They are now within one of TK Ninja once again. Again, TK Ninja, only 3 shells to goal, but they still do not have a sword. Without that sword, they cannot actually finish the game. More tile rooms for Bibi. Waiting to see what this key drop will give them. And it's simply a compass. Gonna skip that and just keep on walking. It is not worth the time. Falling into these holes, it's that black hole, for lack of a better term, is it can really get you. It can be very frustrating to see that sort of thing happen. They just received a shield. I do believe they already had a shield. Nope, that would just be their first. So they do not get the second level shield, which means in logic, Turtle Rock is still not accessible. That doesn't mean that they can't get up there. There are more than one way to get up there. You can have a potion, which basically makes you invincible once you lose all your hearts for a short period so you can get through. There's also the fact that you can clip, and as long as you have enough health, you can get through because it does not push you back, from what I understand. It's not something I've actually put to the test just yet. It hasn't been required for me. See what Bibby picks up from Facade. It was another shard. That puts them at 23, I believe. Odoron only has 19. And Bibby was dancing around in the lobby of Face Shrine there for a moment. Wasn't sure where he needed to go, apparently. And TK Ninja's turned in the Toadstool for an item. Got a heart container out of that. You know, little buffer is always helpful, but it's also not something that's terribly critical for people that are playing at this level. Especially, say, on Bibby's side, where they have the blue tunic right now, which halves their damage. So effectively, they've got double hearts. He's going to take the raft ride down, and we will see where they're going to get in the raft ride. There are 2 checks here. It's also, since they do have the feather, it's a good place to collect various consumables. They have multiple floating arrows, bombs, magic powder, hearts, not terribly useful, the rupees. You can actually collect much of the fee to get into the raft ride if you collect the right rupees to take the right path for that. We say TK Ninja, excuse me, he's in the color dungeon, just finished one of the technically 3 mini bosses. There is a boss at the end, but I wouldn't even qualify them as a full boss because they're relatively simple. But that was one of the 2 true mini bosses. I do believe I just saw that they got a sword. Yes, can confirm they did get a sword, so they are now 2 seashells from technically being in go mode. We see Bibby, they did a save and quit reset to hop back up to the top, and it looks like they're now probably going to head to Candlelit Castle from the backside. I do not believe they ever got the bananas. Once you have the flippers or the rooster's technically a little more difficult, but not difficult in the hard sense, more that it's just finicky. You can't actually fly across that gap where it would be water. We see he's now going to take on the Bomberman meets Whack-A-Mole. TK Ninja went back home. Bibby's going around the back way to get to the crow or raven. I do not know exactly what this particular type of bird is supposed to be. It acts more like a crow, so I'm calling it a crow. Let's see, TK Ninja. He is currently in the wastelands near the graveyard. I'm not sure which way he's probably going to head. They've probably collected more things for Bottle Grotto, which he could potentially do. And it does appear he's skipping. He's probably going to go to Tao Heights. At this point, he does have access to much of Heights. Does not have the bird key, so cannot technically go to Eagle's Tower. He also cannot get to Turtle Rock without a glitch. He can get as far as Turtle Rock, though, if he used the glitch. He can get to the fire without. He does not have the Angler key, so he can't get into Dungeon 4. It looks like they may be at quite the impasse at this point. They are probably going to take the raft, but I don't have their location tracker to be sure, but I would imagine they're running out of checks at this point. That or they have forgotten something and they need to go back and check it at some point. Wildem is still at 25 shards. Odoron's at 20. I believe that's 20. Could be a 28. Again, not entirely sure with the font at times. Bibby has 17 shells and 18 with TK Ninja. So still relatively close. It's anybody's game in Link's Awakening for sure. And once they clear, they will release everything they have to the Final Fantasy game, which, as thorough as they've been in this, is probably not going to be much relative to the whole. They will still have, at this point, they've not even touched Angler's Tunnel, because that's impossible at this point. So no Angler's Tunnel. Then they can't do Eagle's Tower at this point. They could technically get into Turtle Rock with some glitches. Wouldn't be out of the question, especially if they've got magic or medicine, as they call it specifically, in this game. So that would be quite a few checks. Turtle Rock in particular has a number of them. We see Bibby with a super jump in the key cavern. Looks like they're going to clip and try and skip into the nightmare, I would imagine. That's 2 checks. Very quick execution, very clean. Are they going to try and clip? Nope. They apparently did not realize they were out of keys. So they went back in there, and that seems to have been mostly a dead end for them. So I am curious where their missing items are at this point. They're only 3 and 2 away from goal in terms of shells. I do not believe I have seen either of them make any significant headway into Tao Heights. That's probably where they need to go, and that's probably where their items are at this point, I would imagine. If not their items, at the very least something that they can pass on to the Final Fantasy players to get them somewhere. It doesn't appear too much like they're at an impasse. Again, I'm not terribly familiar with Final Fantasy as a whole, much less the first game, but it doesn't appear that they're just sitting there pacing and grinding. So from my understanding, they're not terribly impassed at this point. We see the magic lens on the left side. TK Ninja just a little bit behind in terms of their ascent into Tao Heights. That's a second shield. That means in logic, Bibby can hit Turtle Rock. We're going to see, yes, we're going to see a bomb trigger to get the item from Papel. And just some rupees for him. Only 50 to boot. We just saved your life, and that's all we get. Come on, we can do better than that, Papel. It does not look like TK Ninja is going to bomb trigger. It looks like he's going to go in this way. Which, to be fair, if you've already got to come up here, isn't really that big of a deal. You're going to have to come up through most of that underground section anyhow. It's not necessarily worth the effort to try and do the bomb trigger in that case, especially if you're not consistent at it. So you're going to use the bomb to get into this one check. I imagine, unless again somebody has missed this bird key, they do not have it yet. So that means that they can't even get to Eagle's Tower. So this is the only check in this direction. That room with all the chests, for people who are not familiar with Link's Awakening, that room has the entire room filled with whatever is the first thing you pull. And it's never going to be a check item, a serious check item. It's going to be what they call a filler in Archipelago, where it's going to be something like a bombs or magic powder or arrows or rupees. And that whole cave is filled with them. So many times what you'll see people do is they'll check the first one to see if it's relevant and if it's anything that they're going to actually want. Say you're short on funds and you need rupees, which is not common once you get this far into a game of Link's Awakening. If you want to do that, you can collect more to get what you need. I've done it before. Say I was, 100 short. I've opened 2 chests to get the 100 rupees I needed to do whatever. There are only 3 things that require rupees, if I remember correctly. That's one of those things I forget in the heat of the moment. You need 1 shop item, which is 200 rupees. You need the second shop item, which is 980, which you don't have to spend. You can steal that. So in general, 980 is almost your full count of rupees in Link's Awakening, but it's not actually, something you're probably going to spend that money on. And then the third one is Mamu. Mamu is something that neither of these runners have done. They're probably not going to do unless they have to hint for it. I have done Mamu in a race on a very rare occasion because an item was there and I know I needed it. Because it is annoying because you have to do the signpost maze and it's not a quick thing. So unless you know there is something there you need, you really want to avoid that. Let's see if Bibi remembered what was in the cave or if they're going to go and do this check. It appears they did. The looking glass, magnifying glass, basically useless in the randomizer, so there's no real point in actually going to get that. So that was a good time save decision to make there. Looks like TK Ninja is actually making up time. I'm curious, they probably skipped the single bomb check, which is probably not going to hurt them. If I remember, memory serves me, it was just rupees or some other filler item that was not useful. So they are both going to make it to Turtle Rock, and this race may come down to routing of Turtle Rock specifically. We will see what happens, but I imagine we are very close to the end of this race. I say this could be finished within the next 20 to 25 minutes, and I would say that's probably a conservative estimate at this point. We got the Mad Batter, gives you some medicine. Medicine is a two-edged sword in Archipelago. It is helpful. If you lose all your hearts, it automatically refills them. That is extremely useful in a pinch. Where it's not useful in the context of Archipelago specifically, and we see Bibi gets another seashell. That puts them at 18. They are now tied and mere seconds apart from one another. But as I was going about the medicine and the double-edged sword nature of it, if you already have medicine, which most good players will, they're going to keep the magic for the most part, or I mean their health for the most part, and not lose the medicine because of that. You end up in this situation where medicine effectively, what was a good item, now becomes a trash item and doesn't do you any good. So Bibi is not going into Turtle Rock. They hinted for seashells, and it looks like they are probably going to head and sit and wait at the egg for their shells to come in. It looks like TK Ninja, however, is going to bomb trigger Turtle Rock. Now, Turtle Rock's head is solid now. If he were to walk up to it and push against it, it would be solid. But as soon as it starts to move, it becomes unsolid. And at that point, you can walk through. It's useful in the sense that you can immediately get into Turtle Rock. It's a little less useful in the sense that you have to do it every single time because the turtle head does not actually die and therefore disappear. So we're seeing a route option here. Bibi has just opened their egg. They are on the way to the final boss. I don't think the name of the boss is ever given in the game, but I do believe it is Deathful, as people have given it the name. It's DETHL, if memory serves. And so they are going to go through this maze in Archipelago, and I'm pretty sure the standard randomizer as well. The route does not change unless you read the book in the library. We just saw they did a bomb trigger sort of thing with the first boss to skip the dialogue. With that, there's a big diatribe that they go on when they start, and they again bomb triggered that to skip that. Now we have the Aghanim fight, and the coloration is not here, but using the same terminology from Link's Awakening, we're going to look and see how many blue balls this guy gets in his fight. So far, he's 2 for 2. He's doing really well so far. I've had personally really good luck with the Aghanim fights in this one, or in this tournament. I've only had one, I think, in the entire tournament so far, so that makes me roughly 13-1, 12-1, something like that. Can't do the math in my head. He's got 2 cases of blue balls so far, and he needs 1 more. We'll see if they give him another one. Oh, he's having terrible luck this go around. We've got TK Ninja. They are now on their way to the egg. They've got their 20 seashells as well. They're behind, but short of a death. I'm pretty sure that Bibi's going to have it here. Now, that's not the end of the race, though. Remember, folks, this is only half the race. We still have to wait and see what the Final Fantasy players, and he is still receiving blue in this fight. Like, this is, I haven't seen this many consecutive in a long time. Like I say, I've had pretty good luck personally lately. We're talking, 4 good shots in a lot of mine. I almost wonder if the RNG is not broken in some way, because this is ridiculous. I should have kept count. I mean, based on time alone, we have to have had probably a dozen at this point. Okay, he finally gets his 4th hit in. I was worried there for a second that the RNG gods were going to steal this away from him. Good clean execution with the Moldorm Shadow. Now we've got Ganon. Simple charge. It's a dead simple way to beat him, and it's relatively quick. I'll admit it's not as fun as the way I fight him when I play casual, which is jump around like a madman. But you want to do it fast, not stylish in this. So what he's going to do most likely is get Deathel up there in the corner, and they basically are immobile, and he'll hit him one time in the eye with that boomerang, and that will be it for the Link's Awakening. And there we go. He is dead. We wait for the explosion to happen, and they go up the stairs. Time for a Link's Awakening player would technically be as soon as it fades to white. But again, this is not the end. It's really just the beginning of the end for everybody in this case. So that's roughly an hour and 7.5 minute run. I didn't see the exact time when it was over for Bibi, but that was a very quick run, which seashell hunts can be very quick. It's one of those things, it's down to purely checks. There's no sort of a specific progression you have to make. You don't have to beat dungeons. So it can range anywhere from, really fast to really long. I've seen, this may be one of the faster races I've seen so far in the seashell bracket, but then I've seen them that were running an hour and a half, hour and 40 as well. But when Bibi finished their match, they released whatever they still had to their Final Fantasy player, Wildem, which gave them, they now have 32 shards. They are likely on their way to the end at this point to fight Chaos. Again, I'm not terribly familiar with Final Fantasy, so TK Ninja having a much better situation with the fight. No significant blue ball runs, but again, still only about 2 minutes behind. By the time all this runs up, fade to white, we're about 2 minutes behind, which is very close. I'm curious to see if this gets Odron enough of their shards with the release. There were quite a few sent out, I'm sure, because we had, as I said, Turtle Rock, you had Eagle's Tower, which wasn't even touched. There wasn't even Angler's Tunnel was not touched. I don't think they went so much as to Tail Cave. I think the only dungeons they put any were Bottle Grotto, Key Cavern, and they did the Catfish Maw and Face Shrine. So it's roughly half. So now it becomes a race to chaos, I would imagine, and Wildem has a fairly significant lead in terms of time, but I don't know exactly what their situation is in terms of location and how hard it's going to be. So we will see how this goes, and we are in the final minutes of this race, assuming nothing horribly, terribly goes wrong, which Commenter's Curse may be the case. This is, I'm curious to see what this runs us, because there were roughly 2 minutes between the Link's Awakening players. I'm just curious to see if we have a similar time frame difference between Wildem and Odron. Like, this is going to be a tight game no matter what. I imagine we're talking within 5 minutes of each other, no matter what. But I'm curious to see how they correlated in terms of Link's Awakening players versus the Final Fantasy, because that's the dynamic that you've seen in this. Is a lot of these matches fall very heavily on one or the other. One match I've seen, it was very loaded in the Final Fantasy players' favor, and they had many things very early on, and they did releases several minutes before the Link's Awakening players did. And then I've seen where it's the opposite, where the Link's Awakening players have been holding up something on the Final Fantasy side and then releases it, and then the Final Fantasy guys can go and finish like they've done here. Because that was basically what happened. They had everything they needed except for the shards, and the full clear for the Link's Awakening players released all that. That's not as common in the first round with Link's Awakening, because in the first round of Link's Awakening, it was more about dungeons, so you didn't just get this big release where, okay, you can go fight the final boss now. In at least one case, it was, oh, hey, you've got all the stuff you need to go beat the dungeons, but you've still got to play for like another 20, 40 minutes to finish this after they're done. And there we have it. Wild Ham has just finished, and that makes the Omelettes. I'm not going to try and say that in French. I don't speak French. I never took a French class. But the Omelettes team has won. Let's see how far behind Odron is. I'm curious to see. I think that we're going to look at about the same time difference between them as was between the Link's Awakening players. Team Omelettes, you did good. You won.
Thank you, Gigi.
And it is, again, a very, very close race, just like last night. Y'all played it down to the wire.
Yeah, it's always that last shard, and then when you need to depend on the LADX player to finish, and so I guess that makes for a very, very close race.
Yeah, it depends. Like I say, it's choices that you make along the way makes a difference. But yeah, a lot of times it really is. There's a whole bunch of stuff in one game or the other, and that's the way it's got to go. So, what did you think about your playthrough? Did you think you made any good choices, bad choices, things that you're shocked that they managed to let you still win after that? Just what are your thoughts?
I think I'm pretty happy with my routing. It seems that again, Ice Cave was pretty loaded, and again, it was a mistake to fade it. I don't know if Odron did Ice Cave or
not. I was not paying quite as much attention to the Final Fantasy because, admittedly, I'm not terribly familiar with the game. But no, I believe that they didn't release much of their stuff there until relatively late either. Y'all, honestly, from my limited understanding of the Final Fantasy, and especially with the LADX, who I am very familiar with, y'all played very similar, which explains why your times are so close together. There was very little deviation in this race between the two of you, and where it happened very quickly, y'all would just reconverge and swap over and do the same thing that the other person had done. So even when you made different choices, it just was a matter of when you did them, and it didn't ultimately make a difference. Like, y'all made very similar decisions in this race, and it was very close because of that.
Yeah, I think we had a very loaded start, so that kind of direct you one way. That set the tone for the whole race, I guess.
All right, and now we have the rest of them in here with us. So this race was very close, you guys. Do you have any thoughts about what do you think made the difference on your end, not having seen the rest? Do you have any thoughts on what may have been the case? What made the difference?
Did Wild Hand go march early?
Yes, I did.
That might be
Okay.
it then.
Yeah, not finding that sword for TK until near the end. I could see that being a big difference.
You would think, but actually, watching y'all, as I was telling them before you joined, y'all were very similar in your execution, even without that sword. To the point where I made comments when you were getting close. I'm like, they're 2 seashells away, but they do not have a sword. If they don't get this sword before they get those 2 shells, they still can't finish the game. Y'all were that close. And actually, in terms of shell count specifically, y'all were actually in the lead up until just minutes before the end of the race. We're talking within 10 minutes of the end of the race is it flipped. It was that close.
Yeah, Ice Cave paid off pretty good for our seashells.
It felt like we were in the lead for quite a good while there. Yes.
Yeah, no, it was a very, very close race, very good race. Like I said, y'all basically were taking the same routes. Y'all flip flopped on when you did some of the things. Like you would go one way and then the other one would come back and do it mere minutes later after they finished whatever they were doing. It was a very, very close race, though. It was excellent. Very fast too. You had final times were Omelet, y'all had 112, and then Swords Drawn, y'all were at 114, mere 2 minutes apart.
Whew.
2.5 when you factor in seconds. But yeah, y'all were right on it. And it was basically, it really did come down to the Link's Awakening side of things because y'all were 2 minutes apart, and then the Final Fantasy guys finished 2 minutes apart as well. So that was where it went. It was very tight.
Well, it was fun at least.
Yeah, it was great. It's always nice to have a close race like that.
Any thoughts about the seed in general and the quality of where your items were placed and things like that?
Wow, was that front loaded?
Yes, it was. And I was concerned. I was concerned originally watching because I saw that your starting item was a bomb. I'm like, oh no, they've started with a consumable resource offensive weapon. This is going to be miserable. But very quickly that fear was assuaged because you started getting items. You got Boomerang very early, which for Link's Awakening, very helpful. Yeah, so that was not a problem for long, but I was very concerned when your starting item was a bomb. Well, it's like I say, it was a great race, and that means if I am not mistaken, that means Omelet, that's your second win, correct?
Yes.
'Cause I'm afraid I didn't get to watch most of last night's. I was out of town, but I did catch the very end, but I don't remember who won. I just remembered that it was down to the wire, just like today's. So that means you move on, and you'll be going up against whoever wins the races between myself and Sir Links-a-Lot and our opponents. And that's races will be round 2 for us will be tonight, and then tomorrow will be round 3 if needed. I'm going to be honest. I'm the rookie. I don't expect that's going to happen, but I hope it does because it's more exciting that way. But so y'all will be going up against somebody. Could be me, probably not be me. But I look forward to seeing your continuing races. You've done exceedingly well, very quick on these seeds. Any last thoughts? Any shout outs you want to do before we go?
I just want to wish our opponents the best of luck in the finals, and hopefully they can carry the torch to victory since they beat us out of it.
Yep, I want to thank both of our opponents for a great race, and just want to thank Odron for being such a good partner to me. That was a great. We had a good team thing going there.
Yeah, and just because you lost, like I said, that was excellent. Like, and there's a very good chance. Like, I feel pretty good about Team Omelet here. It's like, if you're going to lose, at least lose to the people who are going to take it all. That's always been my philosophy.
It's a pretty good one.
Any final comments from Team Omelet before we go?
I just want to say GG to you guys. That was an incredible series. That was a lot of fun, and like I said, these races are were so race certain. Sometimes it could go either way. So GG again. That was great.
All right. If it's, do you have something else?
With my big English, same thing from Wildam. Thank you all.
And thank you. I know that you're not necessarily English is not necessarily your first language, but I do appreciate what you can say, and it's good to hear from you. If there's nothing else, I just want to thank the people who have helped behind the scenes. We got ADR on Restream, Maddie, who did tracking for this, and they had a lot to track between everybody because we only had the one tracker. And then helping me here and there, little bits and pieces, getting up to speed because this is my first commentary. So, yeah, sorry guys, you got the newbie on that front too. So, but anyhow, it's been a good, great race, wonderful, and you don't see things this close this often. Not with a randomizer, with something that's set and vanilla. Maybe you see stuff this close, but it's really rare to see something down to the wire like this with a randomizer. And it was an excellent show. But if that's it, we will see you guys for our next race. Not sure when they'll be hosting anything here. Don't have that schedule up in front of me, but I do know that my own race with our opponents tonight, you'll have to forgive me. I'm having a problem with the name at the moment. We're Team Avalon. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick so I can get that because they need credit. They do need credit. I can't just give them nothing. Team Pizza Power. That's Dark Moon and who is his teammate?
That's Maddie.
No one in.
Oh, I'm sorry, Maddie. It's just you. It's just you. That's why I forgot because we've been talking all morning.
I see how it is.
But yeah, so that'll be us, and that'll be tonight at 7, assuming nothing comes up. I don't know what channel that's going to be on at the moment, but we'll get that sorted out in the schedule, and we'll make sure that any notifications go out when it goes live, and just look forward to that for us tonight, and hope you'd come back and join us for that. See you.